Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, if this is your first time listening to the Monetized podcast, it's a podcast all about tabletop RPGs, running them, playing them. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to jamming, DMing, or whatever, the hobby in general. And we just like to share our stories and share, from the perspective of a GM and a player about a bunch of games that we've played in with our friends. And, so you guys can see that the hobby's pretty cool and maybe you want to try GMing.
Exactly. We want to demystify the other side of the DM screen or GM screen or what have you in your game. So you can go ahead and give it a try and come up with some cool, unique, and interesting ideas. So this week we've got some ongoing controversy we can get into. We'll get into some details in that when we get into the actual episode. But before we do that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Calvin. Yeah, yeah, Calvin.
I guess it is. This is something that I kind of scrubbed from Twitter, but it was a very good point in that the players usually have a lot of chances to do something cool and awesome and make a mark in a memorable moment, but sometimes NPCs in games, and again, this is a thing that depends on what kind of game you're playing and all that stuff that everybody knows, but I feel I need to mention. The villains especially, and the general bad guys who just show up, they don't have as many moments to do something memorable or interesting. So, if the character's in the middle of, and I am probably guilty of doing this myself sometimes, but if the character's in the middle of doing something and the GM is clearly trying to have a moment with that character that's going to be pretty much annihilated in a few rounds, as a player, you don't really have to, you can allow that to happen. You don't have to be, you can, again, I don't want to restrain people and just say, let the GM do whatever, and don't interrupt and never say anything. But at the same time, I think you have to recognize that, GMs will put some time into these NPCs or some thought into them, or just might like playing them a bit and might want to have one last moment with them, or do a little bit of dialogue or something, or just playing that character. Again, typically for villainous NPCs that don't usually last as long as companions and things like that. So I think as a player, it's not the end of the world if you let your GM get out that evil bad guy speech. I know this might be a little hypocritical coming from me if you've seen how I play Mass Effect 2, but
yeah,
because over there, if villains start yapping, they get a zapping. That's rule number one.
They get a zapping. True. Well, the thing is too, right? The players always you always want the players have agency, and being it doesn't quite make any sense other than a movie or something where the villain's monologuing over you when you could just stab him. True.
Entirely right? True.
There was I saw the meme of just the two birds, right? One bird starts and the other bird just starts squawking, and it's like oh, I stopped the bird's going into a monologue and the other one's just I'll
roll a hit.
I roll a hit. I grapple him. I cover his mouth so he can't cast spells. So I get it, because you don't want to get hurt as a player because the GM is evil. We understand your plight, but really we know that you guys are the true heroes of the story. We just like to take the spotlight sometimes.
Yeah. Let the GM have fun too.
Yeah, let the GM have fun too, because they put a lot of effort to doing this stuff. But hey, and as well, I think it's kind of, the monologue is fun, and it's you only get to do it as a GM. You never get to monologue as a player. Right, maniacally.
You could. I've done it.
That takes some balls, Calvin. I guess everyone just is oh man, Calvin's speaking, everyone very quiet.
To be fair, it happened very accidentally. I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast. It happened very accidentally with my character over on USP during the Starhaven game, who's been bordering on villainy, and then she had a character pinned down in the middle of a dangerous situation, and for some reason I felt the need to take time to gloat over my fallen enemy, not realizing the danger of my situation as the building that we were in just exploded and collapsed on top of me.
Yeah, definitely. You're two in the sauce, man. That's what it is. But also, I think I think that, like, the when you tell your players this is a cutscene, right? Like, if you really want to get something across or set up a scene, just be like, I think it's good to preface beforehand, or even like at the table, like there should be like a consensus where it's like, at this moment you can't do anything, but right after I'm done this cool scene, you can start acting. You know what I mean? Because if you just want to have that rule set, I think that's perfectly good too. Don't let your players bully you. You tell them what's up.
And to be fair, I mean, I feel like I've probably violated that at some point. I think maybe we both have. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule, but just, it's something to be conscious of, or at least try to be aware of in any moment that you can, as opposed to trying to jump in at every moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have the villain get the monologue, because, like, I want to hear what this man has to say before end his life, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's the spooky bad guy that we've been chasing for, like, in real world months. Or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, let them get their last words out. And
yeah. Then you can commence the stabbing, man. Like,
all right, so let's get into today's topic. So this is a bit outside our wheelhouse. It's inside the vehicle, but outside our wheelhouse. It's more of a Dungeons and Dragons specifically topic. Now, we usually cover, like, as far as fantasy stuff goes, we're usually on Pathfinder. As far as RPG goes, we're usually on, like, Lancer or something else. So we don't talk about D&D a whole lot. I think the last time we talked about D&D was, like, there was some other controversy, like, is Hasbro going to buy Pasion or something like that was going on. So, in keeping with consistency, there was something that kind of blew up over the weekend. This article over on Dicebreaker, and I'll put a link to it below, but it's mostly focused on sort of a meeting with investors that was going on between with Hasbro CEO and the WotC CEO, and they were pretty much having an investor meeting with investors over the web. And one of the topics that had come up was the suggestion that the D&D brand is under-monetized. Essentially, they're not bringing in enough money from, I guess, the players and buyers and users of D&D, 5th edition mostly. And this, of course, caused some controversy because people obviously saw, like, this statement that D&D is under-monetized. And admittedly, I haven't bought a D&D book itself. I think I bought something on, like, D&D Beyond because I thought that gave me the PDF, but it just gave me the rule set or whatever. So I haven't bought a physical book myself, so I don't have, like, a gauge on the price ranges. And I used to buy, like, a whole ton of stuff from Paizo and everything, so I don't really have a gauge on the price of D&D books. But the idea of the most popular TTRPG being under-monetized, the thing that's basically the face of the brand, I guess that's part of why people are reacting this way. The concept of everything has to grow endlessly forever. I don't know if it's applicable in this situation, but there were a whole other bunch of things that were discussed in this article that we can get into as you continue the discussion. I was just curious what your immediate reaction was to that statement.
I mean, I think I out loud said corporations be corpin', like.
Yeah, corpos be corpin'. You're not wrong.
Man. Yeah, right. And it's like, I'm never against a business trying to get more money, because that's the whole point of the business. Right. It isn't actually to create products, it's actually to get your money, period. Like, it doesn't matter how they get it. It just seems they just want, they produce a product, obviously, and it's a good product because you want to use it. I don't know. I just think that it just sounded like it was obviously like for investors, right? And
yes.
Like the rhetoric you would use for somebody who's putting stake in your company is like different from what you would talk about, like how it trickled down to the actual products and actual people making them and the fans consuming it, right?
Yeah, so that was one thing that I had thought about this, to be completely fair and balanced, whatever. Because this was a meeting with investors, they would want to hear, hey, we're going to be making more money. They would want to hear we're going to figure out ways to increase monetization. At the same time, though, I recognize that the audience would look at this and think, like, does that mean you're going to monetize what's currently already out there for free? Does that mean you're gonna turn D&D into a subscription service? Because I think that was something they were talking about. What does that mean for especially digital stuff that's upcoming with D&D? Because that was something they talked about in their one D&D announcement trailer some time ago. They spoke about having like their own. Basically, it seemed like they were making their own virtual tabletop that had its own like 3D models and everything. But like, how is that going to work? Is that going to be a subscription-based thing? Is that going to be, if I buy a book, do I get the models? Do I have to buy the models separately? Like that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it'll probably be something like a one-time code on a book. That seems to be like the simplest way to do it, because I think the issue they're running into is because the product that they put out is a rule set, right? Mm-hmm. Primarily, like everyone's interaction with the game is you buy the D&D rule set and you buy, I don't know, the monster manual, is that what it's called? Yeah, right? Yeah, Bestiary is
Pathfinder.
Bestiary Pathfinder, yeah, the monster manual, right? And like it's like the rule book, and then the monster manual, and then the player's guide as well. There's like a bunch of different books.
It might be a player's handbook, yeah.
Player's handbook, you know what I mean? Like where all the players stuff exists.
Yeah.
And like that's just kind of how it's been forever until like the age of the internet, right? And there's only so much you can do, because every table just really needs one copy of all those books. As long as all those players keep playing together, and they just, even if they switch out GMs and stuff like that, then it's like, you know, you only need one copy of it. Mm-hmm. Right? I can tell you how many times I bought like a book and I just gave it to my friends, right? Because that's what you do with the stuff that you own. The problem is like, you know, when you go to a subscription service, you don't own that stuff anymore, right?
Exactly.
Which is like, you know, kind of shitty, because, you know, it's if it goes that way, we don't know yet, right? If it goes that way where you can own, like if you want to play D&D online, and the best way to do it would be D&D 1, and you'd have to, like, if you paid like in a subscription per month or whatever, right? But you get access to all of the D&D stuff. It's just that you have to keep paying for it. Like eventually you're gonna like I don't know. It depends on the type of buyer, right? Because I'm somebody who, like, I won't pick up every book. Like I barely have any of the Pathfinder stuff. Like Pathfinder has pulled out, like, since Pathfinder 2, they put out like a bajillion books, right? And I've only had like 3 of them. I think I only have Bestiary 1, the core rule book, and the Advanced Player's Guide. I think that's like all of the rule books I actually physically own.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I do have the GM's guide too, but
I did used to get Starfinder stuff pretty consistently, but then I was like, wait, I should probably wait until I'm actually running a campaign or something, so I'm not just spending money for the sake of spending money, which I'm fine to do with something I like, but I'm like, you know, I should probably be like a smidge more responsible than that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always good to support like your hobby, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you want D&D or Pathfinder to succeed, you have to give them your money, right? As well as play the game. That's primarily is they don't actually care if you're playing the game, right? Like once they get your money, they don't care anymore. I mean, they're very happy that you are, because then you're, you know, it's like a kind of grows itself, right? Because, you know, you introduce more people into the hobby grows. You know, podcasts like us talk about it. There's like, you know, people are playing the game online, people are reviewing the book, that kind of stuff. All this content's being generated, all these people are being introduced to it, and they might, you know, maybe not stick around with this group, but maybe they're like, oh, I'll run my own D&D thing, and I'll go buy the books, right? More money in their pocket.
Yeah, but I feel like that's something people are worried about. Actually, sorry, no, I'll let you finish your point, because
No, go ahead.
I feel like that's part of what people are worried about. That's what their under-monetized thing is sounding like to people, because if you do just need that one book and maybe one supplement or whatever, then that's just one person buying the book for a group of however many people, like half a dozen people or whatever. Are those other people buying a player's handbook, or are they sharing it?
Honestly, like, I shared it. I can tell you, like, I've been playing games like this for a decade now, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like I can't imagine a world where everybody needs their own subscription to play. Like in this, I would rather just play another game, dog. Like,
exactly.
right? Like, I think it's crazy because, like, man, like, Lancer put out most of its rules for free, and I'm like, why am I subscribing to D&D? Forget that.
But that's exactly what people are worried about. Is it like, am I gonna have to pay $9.99 a month so I can use this spell? And that's what I think, like
pay to win, dog. Like,
exactly. Because I'm looking at their virtual tabletop, and like, it looks cool. It's in Unreal Engine. I'm sure it's gonna look very pretty and everything. But is it going to require a subscription? And this is like, you know, worst case scenario, most pessimistic outlook. I don't know if it's going to be that, but I think that's part of what people are like worried about. Like, I'm trying to like see what the actual concerns are beyond just Corpo's gonna corp.
Yeah.
Like, what are the actual things that are gonna hit players? And I think that's one of them.
I'm sure there's also going to be portability too, right? Like if I could like infer, like, I think you can probably port characters over. Like, if you do subscribe and you have a character, likely you'd be able to like take that character and just play in any game that you want, right?
Yeah, I think D&D Beyond does that.
Yeah, because like, you know, it's like there's nothing kind of homebrewy about it. You just kind of click the buttons, right? I've never played this thing. I'm still speculating, but like, I know that's exactly what they were trying to do in 4E, by the way. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody harps on how 4E is bad, but jokes, we're right back here with D&D 1, right?
Yeah, I did see some comparisons, but I didn't have the context of them.
Yeah, that's why like 4E was so how should I say, it's like it was so gamified and everything was so hard coded. Because it didn't, like, there was no homebrew potential because everything was already done for you. You could literally just take your character and put it into a level appropriate scenario with whole new characters, and it'll like there's no worry about your character being overpowered or underpowered because everything was by the level, right?
Right.
Magic items didn't matter, money didn't matter. It was just what your abilities were and how do you want to use them, like, essentially, right? So, like, but now if your character's totally portable, right? Like, you could just do the same thing. Like, but again, everyone harps on 4E, but you know, D&D 1 is slowly transforming it back into that version. Although I think 4E was like a little bit too. I know I play Pathfinder 2E, right? So it's like Pathfinder's like pretty technical or I would say like number heavy, crunchy. But 4E was kind of crunchy. It was like there was like a lot of stuff happening, abilities and cooldowns and, you know, a lot to keep track of and statuses and shit like that. But
yeah,
off topic. Yeah, I think like,
no, I think it's related because that was something I saw people talking about, and we have talked about 4E with multiple people on here who say that they've gotten interesting things from it and that some of the DNA of it is in Lancer or in Pathfinder 2.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it was a good. I enjoyed playing it. I think that it was definitely a jarring jump from 3.5 to 4E. Like, if you were a hardcore, like, you play 3.5 every week kind of dude, and then you saddled up with this, like, you know, power system that they developed, I think it was like, you know, and like, you know, some of the language they used was just a little bit too much for some people. Although if you played like tactical, like, you know, JRPGs, like SRPG, like strategy RPGs, like, it's like the same shit. So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I would be concerned also because anytime someone's like some suits like trying to tell you that they're gonna monetize more of the content, it's like never good. It's never as good as it could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I like the problem with subscription stuff is that, you know, think about how many campaigns are on hiatus right now.
Oh
right?
my goodness.
Right?
Yes.
Like, the amount of campaigns between like, you know, me and Calvin right now. It is a staggering amount of stories not being told. And if we had a subscription, like, you know, I know you could like unsubscribe from it, but like, if you're not using a subscription like every day, you're never gonna get your full monies out of it, and D&D just took your money for no reason.
pretty much. Like, if you're not watching Netflix every day, you're wasting money.
Yeah, you're just basically wasting money, like, actually. And like, for you, and like, no person's gonna be like, oh yeah, I unsubscribed this month, but I resubscribed this month, and back and forth like that. Like,
yeah, do all the players have to? And again, this is if they have a subscription service. Like, do all the players have to subscribe to it?
Exactly.
Does everybody have to buy their books individually?
Yeah. And like, I don't know, man, Foundry exists. Like, you just pay those guys one time.
Yeah.
And it's like, the shit works. It's tough. I get the subscription based service is, and like, I don't know what else other paywalls are going to put in the way for getting stuff. It's the way of the future, because that's just the best way to get people's money, because you get their money without them doing anything or you doing anything, right? And I guess it's good because then that stuff will fuel future content. But I mean, it's like it never really works out that way 100% with those big corporations. Like, mostly it's just kind of like going to bonuses and lining people's pockets and getting more acquisitions and shit like that.
Yeah.
I would say the majority of it, like maybe like 40% of it, goes back into actual content creation, and maybe like even a smaller portion of that goes to the actual people making that shit.
Yeah, and then, like, speaking of people making, like, because in respects to the game being monetized, it's also, there's like a ton of third-party stuff out there for D&D. Like, it's the biggest fish in town. It's pretty much the only game in town if you want to make something. I mean, not literally, obviously, with all the people who've run Kickstarters that we've talked to, but like, obviously it's the biggest thing. So part of me wonders if when they say undermonetized, is it just undermonetized by them? Because it's people who make stuff and they get paid for it off of like DM's Guild or whatever other site they put it on. Are those people going to be impacted because they want to monetize the game more?
And then, like, at which point is, like, what like level are they focusing on the products coming out? Is it gonna be print books? Is it gonna be, well, print books and PDFs, but is it gonna be like standalone buying stuff, or is it gonna be, focus on stuff that's for D&D 1 primarily, and everything else will happen afterwards, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's crazy because, like, and then what about those third party? How are they gonna get, like, how are you as a GM gonna implement those cool third party stuff that you've bought and put into D&D 1? Like, can you? Is it possible?
Especially when they go like full digital. Like, I don't know. They would need some way to implement that. Can you customize that? Is that going to be part of the subscription service if it is a subscription service?
I know Warhammer 40K actually had a big deal about that, because that game is crazy with the books. Like, they come out with new rules like every year, new updates every year, and it's like you have to buy the new book, right? Those books are not cheap. They're like, $40, $60, $90 sometimes, or they're thick ass tomes. I think sometimes it's like a waste of paper, you know what I mean? Like, I have a couple Warhammer books that from a couple years ago, and they're actually useless because the game has just left. They just gone, right? So at what point is the stuff that you buy not going to be relevant anymore, right? And then I know that you could always, like, me and you can always just go play 3.5 or 2 or the first edition of D&D, which I don't think anybody wants to do that right now. I know on this channel we don't. Maybe, like, maybe you could revisit 3.5, but I don't think so. I think I would rather just stick with Pathfinder 2. You could always play those games, but then, it's always like, well, you're never going to get any new stuff done for those games, right?
Yeah, I mean, not like from the company itself, at least.
It's such a crazy time, and everyone's like, oh, what's going to happen? New edition of D&D, oh no, the rules. I bought all this product.
Well, another part is that they were describing, they wanted to turn D&D into a 4-quadrant brand, which is an odd term. But from what I was understanding from that, I did listen to a bit of the call. I did find it online. It was kind of dry though, so I just kind of skipped through it because obviously it's an investor meeting.
It was a corporate presentation.
I was like, God, this
there's
stuff is
wizards
boring.
In this.
No wonder I'm not rich. But so something that I think alleviates a bit of concern, for as much as I can be concerned for a game that I don't actually play, for me, is that it doesn't seem like it's resting entirely on the game itself, because they're also talking about how they want to get revenue from things like, obviously the film. Right, I think that's going to be something that they expect to bring in a very massive audience. Large AAA video games, like Baldur's Gate 3 is coming out soonish, or the beta of it was out, which is something I'm kind of interested in because Larian Studios is developing that. And I haven't played any of the other Baldur's Gate stuff, but I did play Divinity Original Sin and Original Sin 2, and those were awesome games. So I see a lot of that in the gameplay I've seen of Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah. So, I mean, I have a lot of faith in that.
Yeah, that game company, that group, like, they make really good turn-based environment interactable games, which is basically, if you want to play D&D solo, like they're a pretty good place to start, right? So yeah, Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, I wait. So 1, 2, and then the other one would be merchandise.
Yeah, then merch, like toys, collectibles, and just merch, which I think they're expecting to have. I mean, I think they're expecting all the quadrants to have like a pretty big boost after the film, because then they can have, you know, iconic characters that they can make merchandise out of.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, you know, you get your Funko Pops and your action figures and like maybe some posters, I guess. If the movie doesn't fail, which I don't think it'll fail, because D&D's big, and even if, like, you know, a section of the D&D population goes and watches this film out of the fact that, like, it says Dungeons and Dragons on it, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I think they'll recoup their, like, no one's gonna be mad. They're gonna get their money for sure, right?
Yeah, because I look at the movie, and to me it just looks like it'll be like it's hard for me to believe that it'll be terrible in a way that will turn off an audience, especially for like a general audience who will look at it and they'll see Chris Pine and they'll see Michelle Rodriguez, and it'll be like a fun little fantasy heist thing that's kind of like ripping off Guardians of the Galaxy a bit. I don't think it's going to be bad. I think the worst it could be is probably fine.
Yeah. I mean, if James Gunn literally directed the D&D movie, it would literally just be Guardians. I'm pretty sure, and there would just be like a daddy issue. Like, I swear to God, like, James Gunn makes the same movie every single time with just different characters and settings, but it's always like an emotional crux of like, me and my dad's got problems, but we still love each other. Like, just solidified every single time. I mean, I would watch any James Gunn movie. That shit gets me. But yeah, you know, if it's a good general fantasy movie, which I think it would be, and there's cool D&D stuff that happens, which, congratulations, kids, you get to see that shit on the screen with some really high-paid actors and stuff, and some cool CGI, probably. You know, but yeah, I think I've said this before, like, I'm not that excited about the D&D movie. I don't even play D&D, but I'm like excited for you.
Admittedly, my excitement is coming mostly from the fact that, and this came from me watching like a trailer analysis video afterwards, but they spent a whole lot of time in Neverwinter, and we like passed through it in our Lost Mine of Tim Delver game, or Unintended Consequences rather.
Oh, true.
So that's like where my main excitement is just like, I just want to imagine that space a bit more by seeing it visualized, even though we just kind of like pass through it on the way to something else.
Yeah, and like, I hope they give more to the set and the setting and like not the main characters, but like the world, because that's kind of like where I think a lot of the, you know, the D&D players who've been, or like, you know, all those tables who've played on the Sword Coast, right? Mm-hmm. And they could be like, oh, look at this thing is there, you know, they can play spot the Easter egg, right? And you know, it'll be cool for those people, right? They'll get a kick out of that. But also, I hope it's a good movie as well, because, you know, I don't care how many Easter eggs you put into something. If it's not straight up a good piece of work, then it's never gonna go anywhere, right? Like, all the references you want, right?
It has to appeal to that large audience, so it is this on-ramp into D&D. So people who aren't already playing will see it and they'll be like, oh, I like that character and that character. I'm gonna buy some merchandise. What's this ampersand thing? What's a D20? I think their intention is to on-ramp people into the game, and then when people are into it, and then this is the other thing, they'll see this digital virtual tabletop, which is, to be like, quite frank, usually the tabletops, the digital ones, are easier to play with. Like, I don't think that's a too debatable topic. You might find some specific things, but like at the end of the day, it's far easier to roll a die and do some math when there's something else doing the math for you. So if a lot of people see this movie and then they want to try this game and they see this virtual tabletop that does all the math for you and it looks really pretty because it's an Unreal Engine, and all they ask for is $9.99 a month, and then you get all the books and you get to make your own figure and you got your own Michelle Rodriguez and you can give her blue hair or whatever, then I don't know. That seems like the direction they're going in. At least that's what they're telling their investors. Because again, this is an investor meeting. So I don't think we're going to, we wouldn't have seen anything very interesting for the actual player base in this in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, too, as well as it gives D&D enthusiasts another outlet that isn't playing the game, right? Mm-hmm. You get to have your cool figurines. You get to have the movie you get to watch, right? Stuff that you can interact with. It's just kind of like other, like, I get what they're, like, I understand, like, the need to dissociate, like, the actual time at the table with you consuming D&D products, because, like, that's kind of how it is these days. It's always like, whenever you have, like, an IP, it's like, how can I get you to make this a lifestyle? Right, make it so, like, do the Marvel thing, right?
Yeah.
Eat, sleep, and breathe this one franchise, because that's the way that you're gonna be able to keep getting people's money. It's like, you make it their life, and they will give you the money.
Oh yeah, they're for sure Marvelizing the D&D movie if it's successful. That's why it's Dungeons and Dragons : then the subtitle. Expect more movies to be titled Dungeons and Dragons : some other subtitle.
Yeah, which, like, again, I'm happy for the D&D enthusiasts out there if it does work out for you guys. I've just been down this road a while. And as somebody who, like, also doesn't even run games the way that they're not, like, intended, but, like, we homebrew a lot, and I think that on this channel we always encourage people to just stick whatever they feel like in the game, make the game that their own. I think that when things get too homogenized and, like, people start expecting things to be a certain way and not just, like, being excited to see what the DM cooked up, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's where things get bad. Like, players should be happy. Like every table should be unique, and that's the way that's the way it was intended.
Yeah.
But I think with D&D 1 and the ease of play and stuff like that, I think that might take away. I think that's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about, like, people not homebrewing, people not, doing special things and making their game special, because half of the comments we get is like how cool I did this one cool thing, which was not in a book.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't spelled out for me. It wasn't mechanically in there. I just said, yeah, fuck it, roll. Right? Like, let's see what happens. So
yeah, like, hopefully that doesn't. Hopefully that's not that's not one of the things that they try to figure out a way to monetize, right? Like, hopefully they don't throw off, like, homebrew stuff and third-party stuff and try to figure out how to monetize that. Like, I understand people's concerns here. I just feel like I don't want to sound like the bad guy here, but I don't feel like what people are worried about here. I get it. I just don't feel like it was confirmed in a way that all of this sounds terrible. It just sounds like they're talking to their investors and saying,
you corpo scrub.
No!
you corpo suit.
I think
how much
I'm
do they
one
pay you? Tell me now.
Oh no. Don't look at my big bags of gold from WotC. But no, like, because they're talking about revenue from the film. They're talking about the game. They're talking about merchandise. Like some people are pointing out how, and I think the article pointed out as well, that they didn't talk about design a whole lot. But, like, this is an investor meeting. Obviously, they're going to focus on monetization more than design in an investor meeting. I understand. I think it's something to still be, like, concerned about and make your voice heard and everything like that. If they're still accepting input from one D&D, I don't even know, because I didn't get on that. But, obviously, as the audience, you want to make sure your concerns are heard and that they're out there. But at the same time, like, I wouldn't expect to hear what they're going to do for the game itself in an investor meeting beyond what are they going to do to profit from the game, which is what their investors want to hear.
Yeah, right. It doesn't actually matter what, like, again, it doesn't matter what they sell you as long as they get the money.
For them at least, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like, we don't know for sure. They'll have some sort of subscription model or season pass model or whatever it might be. It will just be, like, to me, that would just be really easy to implement in a 3D virtual tabletop.
Yeah, and it does make sense. I just think that, like, in a world where, you know, there's so much crunch for subscription and everybody's like, you know, everything is so, like, almost evil in a little way in their ways of trying to get your money. I just think that, like, you know, this could have gone better. They could have been a little bit better about it.
Yeah.
But again, it is an investor meeting. So let's see what actually trickles down in a couple of months.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best thing. Like, they do mention recurrent spending that you see in digital games, and that could mean a lot of things. But until we actually see it, I think, you know, just hurling yourself off the ship isn't the
But hey, it is a really good time. If you just are fed up with corpro scumbags, you should play Lancer. You get to shoot those guys in the face.
You're right. Like, that's that is another thing. Because I don't mind more people playing D&D, because that means in a few months' time or a year's time, more people playing other games.
Yeah, you know, eventually you ran out of D&D to D&D, and then, you know, again, I would like to say that most of the rules of Lancer are free. And the community is actively producing content all the time. And there's so much, like, third-party stuff done by fans. It is a little insane.
Yeah.
I have way too much content to make a Lancer game to even where to start because there's so much.
Same.
And you know, it's done with people's, you know, blood, sweat, and tears. Not saying that, you know, D&D stuff isn't made with blood, sweat, and tears, but, you know, they have to appease the corporate overlords. With Lancer, I mean, you have to beat up the corporate overlords. I'm just saying.
Good sell. Good plug. But yeah, no, I don't mind, like, people new to tabletop RPGs playing D&D, because how many people out there that are playing different games came in through D&D and are like, I want to try a different kind of game. I want to try a mech game. I want to try a superhero game. I want to try a sci-fi game. Or just, I don't really care for this rule set, but I want to play a fantasy game. What's some other fantasy game I can play? I don't see more people playing D&D as a bad thing, because I don't think they'll specifically be locked into it, but they might be if it's a subscription.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it'd be cool if people start playing D&D and they're like, why the hell am I paying for this? And then you find something else that's free.
Exactly.
Or not even free, but just totally like, oh, I could just buy this one time and do whatever I want with it. It's sick.
Yeah, what's this Archives of Nethys site? Oh, it has all the rules for Pathfinder for free?
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be that severe, to be honest, but it's not impossible. And if that's what happens, then I think they're going to see more people bounce off into other games than stick around.
Yeah, that's a good positive spin on it. It's like, when they crash and burn, there'll be other people to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, when people are jumping off the ship, we'll be there in the lifeboats.
Don't worry, kids. We were here before. Yeah, for sure. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it's weird growing up. That's like exactly how it just feels. All these kids these days don't even know how good they have it and how bad they have it at the same time.
Yeah,
it's just every day is just a new kind of silly.
I would hate for someone to come into tabletop RPGs and think paying however many dollars a month just to have access to the rules is a normal thing. As opposed to, because I mean, I'm probably sure there's some subscription service out there that's worth people's time, but the idea of having to pay that for a tabletop RPG game just feels weird to me. And maybe that's just because of what I'm used to, buying the book and then using it forever. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not that bad. But if it is,
I mean, I think,
then we've got other games.
I don't know. Yeah, with those other games. Or you can convert whatever you have and bring it up to whatever game you have. Like, most of the stuff in the book are just ideas.
Also that,
right?
yes.
Yeah, like a goblin in one game is a goblin in another game, or I'm pretty sure you can figure out a goblin, or hey, somebody can probably do a cool conversion for you and just be like, yeah, this is what a goblin would look like.
Yeah,
right?
it's all just
I think
numbers.
that, like, yeah, and like the problem is too that I have is that with D&D 1, it takes away like a part of being a part, it takes away from being a part of a community. Because one of the good things, again, Lancer apparently being the poster boy of, hey, do you want to, like, hey, kid, you want to be cool? Like, stop playing your normie tabletop RPGs and play this cool sci-fi one, right? It's because of the community, right? Like, there's just so much. Like, if you go on there and just ask somebody something, somebody's probably already done it or think that's a good idea, and it'll help you work on it or give you ideas. Like, I think that, like, if everything's already set in stone in the program or in the writing, it's like it's hard to have that kind of, you know, emergent, you know, creativity with like a big group of people, right? And like, you know, again, it's like, you know, many like there's like so many, like we've interviewed so many third-party creators who are just like, yeah, I just turned my campaign into, you know, a full-fledged mission or campaign setting or something like that, right? And like that stuff might not happen if everything is kind of hard-coded, and it's like takes away the idea that, you know, you could do it, like anybody can do it, right? It's not like I mean, it's a lot of work, but I mean, the fact that there's less barriers in the way and you don't have to have a subscription, then yeah.
Like I mean, there's a lot of modularity to the Foundry tabletop, you know, virtual tabletop. So hopefully that comes along with whatever 1D&D ends up being, regardless of how it's monetized.
Yeah. And also all those other like Roll20, is that gonna just die? Like, what's gonna happen?
I mean, how much is Hasbro, because it's Hasbro, it's not just WotC, it's Hasbro. How much is Hasbro monetizing Roll20? Because I feel like that's not the direction that's going in. I don't know how much money Roll20 is giving to Hasbro, so much as Hasbro and WotC having to pay for like advertising or whatever on Roll20.
I think it's crazy because without Roll20, like they would have like their game would be like in the dust.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's also
like
because people buy stuff off Roll20, so I assume Roll20 takes a percentage off of that. So more people playing a certain game is better for them.
But no, I mean just like in general, like I would say that Roll20 and like, you know, the before D&D 1, you know, virtual tabletops are like one of the only reasons why this game didn't like eat dirt, right? Because of the, you know, the panini.
Yes.
Right.
The Panera bread, yeah.
Right. Yeah, the Panera bread, right? So like, I think that it was, you know, and then now what's gonna happen? What happens with those platforms who, you know, you've as like a GM who has a bunch of stuff stored in them, like am I gonna have to port it over? Like,
yeah, because like I look at that and I think from the perspective of an investor, it's like our product is hosted on another service. That service is, even if we publish something on there ourselves, that service is taking, I don't know, 30% or whatever of our money to host our product on their service. Why don't we have our own service so we take the entire profit of that, and then make people pay $9.99 a month?
Yeah, and then on top of that, of all the books and crap they bought previously on that platform, what's gonna happen?
You gotta buy them again.
Are they gonna buy them again? I think that, you know, again, yeah, you're right, Cal. We're speculating the worst out of these people.
We are. Again, like that's
money grabbing
corpos
suits, corpo suits,
which I am now one of. I need to go collect my big bag of gold. It's actually one of those bags that has like a dollar sign on the side.
Rise up, gamers! we can defeat D&D at Hasbro. Joking.
Yeah, no, we are speculating some things to be the worst, but to be fair, we don't really have a lot more information to go on. But to also be fair, we're speculating from an investor meeting, that's the topic they're going to talk about.
It's just the most evilest kind of meeting. That's why everything sounds so evil and corporal.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's more specific stuff that's going on within the D&D community that we might not like specifically be aware of. Like I know there's some like rule changes that came with 1D&D, and there's other stuff going on. I know there's a discussion on like if they should use race or species, which I mean, I don't think either of those solve the problem they're trying to solve, but whatever.
Yeah, they should like obviously it's not a race if you can't like copulate. It's not
Exactly.
You're different species. They're actually just aliens. Like they should just be aliens. Because, you know, that's not how biology works. But hey, I mean, biology doesn't have, you know, fireballs and stuff.
Yeah.
Like although I was just looking at the stocks of Hasbro. I was like, oh, they did take a dip after, you know, the announcement came out. It was like, whoo. But I mean, they've been dipping.
This is probably a good time to buy, actually, because I imagine their stocks are going to go up once the film comes out. If it's down now.
Yeah, probably.
Buy low, sell high. I gotta make more room for more bags of gold.
To be fair, they've been going down. They're down significantly from the start of the year. Holy, this is the straight dope, folks. This is how you can tell.
Yeah, that's the important part. The stocks.
The stocks.
The film's out early next year. Buy the stocks now, and then when. God.
Yeah, and then with your gains, you can go ahead and subscribe to.
Yeah,
D&D 1, right? And it was for free, right? Like
sell your stocks when the movie comes out, and then you can subscribe to.
Easy. Hey, you did it. Good job.
Bags of gold for everyone. I think we just solved the entire economy.
Just buy. All right, we should probably end
yeah.
this
So,
episode.
if y'all out there, if you have any more specific details you want to put in, because again, we're not really in the D&D community, just kind of saw this article, thought it was an interesting topic, wanted to see what people were saying about it, how they felt about it. Just drop a comment below about how you might feel about this sort of thing, what concerns you might have, because for better or for worse, D&D is the name in tabletop RPGs. D&D is the Kleenex of tabletop RPGs. What Kleenex is to tissues, what Q-tips is to cotton swabs, what Google is to search engines. Yeah. So what it does is going to have far-reaching impacts, good or bad, for other tabletop RPG games. So yeah, just drop your comments below about what sort of, I guess your concerns, if you have concerns, or your ideas about what might happen, or if you do play D&D, what sort of impact you've actually seen on the ground in D&D so far, because we didn't really talk about like rule stuff, because that's not something we're fully aware of. I will link to the Dicebreaker article below if you want to go check that out and read it for yourself. But I think that's going to be it for this episode. Do also want to give some shout outs to a whole bunch of people. There's a whole bunch of awesome Lancer stuff linked below. If you're someone who's jumping off the D&D ship, then you can check out some great third-party Lancer stuff to beef up your Lancer game. Talking too much today. To beef up your Lancer game if you're into that. I also wanted to shout out to the Untold Stories project, where I'm at on Mondays and Tuesdays. Not playing Starhaven anymore because I ended and I'm very sad, but we are playing a bit of a Christmas one-shot in the Titan City universe, Titan City being the universe of the novel series that our GM Alex is writing. So go ahead and check that out. I'm playing a very fun character in that. As well as on Tuesdays, their Gemstars Magical Girls fantasy game, where a bunch of stuff just happened. Our characters are very stressed out. They have to save 2 worlds. At minimum, there's probably more.
At minimum.
So go check that out. And also, they have a bunch of one-shots on Wednesdays. They did a Power Rangers one-shot last week. There's another Christmas one-shot coming up. I think there's a Muppets one coming up. So definitely check out all their awesome stuff over the next few Wednesdays. And over on our channel, we have gaming streams. Just started playing Gotham Knights, which has been a whole lot of fun so far. So that's on Thursdays, Skyrim on Fridays, Mass Effect 2 on Sundays. If you want to see me interrupt villains like a hypocrite, then check out Mass Effect 2. But I think that's everything we have for today. Ramon, anything else you want to say before we head off?
No.
All right. Well, for our all of our GMs and players out there and their big bags of gold, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.